Kia ora guys, welcome back to the Black Jersey. My name's Max, I'm the host of the channel, and for today's video I've got the depth chart for France from 2020 to 2023. The purpose of a depth chart is something that a coaches use to manage player workloads. So for an example, we've got the first choice player has played 40% of the minutes throughout the World Cup cycle. Ideally, coaches need to have a clear-cut starting lineup with backup options prepared for them all around. In the ideal depth chart, we've got a second choice player at 30%, a third choice at 20%, then we've also got a fourth choice player who's got 10% of the chart. Throughout the progress of a World Cup cycle, in an ideal world, you've got the four guys who are in a clear position in the pecking order so that you've got the top three you can take to a World Cup and also an extra option that you've got there for a bit of leeway should somebody get injured. How the depth chart works though is that once a player retires or becomes ineligible for their team due to either injury or moving abroad or something, the minutes on the chart will go with them. As we can see, the fourth choice player in this chart has been injured, so his 100 minutes off the possible 1,000 are now invalid. So throughout this video, you're going to see a fair few grey minutes to players who have had issues throughout the World Cup cycle. My father and I, we've counted all the minutes that every French player has played in the Galtier era so we can figure out who's his first, second, third and fourth choices, who's his most important player for the World Cup, and I guess discuss just the position they're in depth-wise to win the World Cup. So firstly, at loose head prop, things are pretty close to decent. It's not entirely sure who a fourth choice player is, but you can see Cyril Baille as the first choice. You've got Jean-Baptiste Gros, who has been injured recently but has come back as the second choice. Then Rida Wardi has recently been identified himself as the third choice option in this position. So this is getting quite close to ideal aside from a fair few minutes going either way. Danny Priso has been injured as well, so they're in a relatively good position considering the experience of Baille, the relative growth that's been happening for Gros's career, and of course Wardi has really cemented himself as a great impact player recently. Over at hooker, this is pretty much the closest you're going to get for perfect there rather. Julien Marchand, as we can see, has played massive minutes, but Piato Malvaca has really come along form-wise to become the second choice, whereas we can also see Gaëtan Barlow in as the third choice. He's recently strung a fair few minutes together, so he's overtaken Camille Shah and Pierre Bergerie, who's over here in the yellow. This chart is looking very good, so France are in a great position for hooker. Over to tight head prop, things are definitely structured, but it's not entirely clear who the first choice is in the position. As we can see, Winnie Antonio has played just 9 more minutes than Mohamed Hawass in the Galtier era, as both of them have been injured, whereas Hawass has had a few disciplinary incidents. We can also see Demba Bamba in here as the third choice. Very good to see the youngster getting his minutes. Sapili Falatia, as of recently, has really cemented his place as an impact player. We can also see a fair few of the invalid minutes from cards that have happened, forcing other positions to lose a few minutes on their chart. Dorian Aldegheri, very clearly the fifth choice too, so I think that's pretty nice to see as well. Overall, they could probably lose Hawass's minutes as well, as the experience of Antonio's clear. Bamba's clearly the third choice, Falatia is clearly the fourth. This is a great looking chart as well. We now head over to the locks. It's very much a total mess for both lock jerseys, but a lot of these players have played minutes in multiple jerseys. As we can see, there's a fair few invalid minutes due to Bernard Leroux having troubles with injury and not making his way back into the team. Thibaut Flamont's also recently overtaken Cameron Woki due to his massive minutes played in the 2023 Six Nations. They've both played a fair few minutes in other jerseys, as have all the guys here, including Romain Taufifenua, so it's not actually too bad at lock 4 when you get to see the minutes that Taufifenua has had over in the 5 jersey. Paul Willems are very clearly the first choice over at number 5, whereas you've got Baptiste Pesonti, who's a very reliable possible option to be the 5th choice if somebody does get injured. Things aren't looking too flash, as we can see with the 2 lock charts. It's a bit staccato-y, a bit scattered in terms of minutes in the lower end of the spectrum, but luckily they have finally identified some clear-cut top 4 choices, 4 locks, with Pesonti having a decent share, I guess, enough of minutes that he can come along and fill in. Righto guys, now that I've got the battery back in my camera, we're at open side flank of the number 6 jersey over in France. Aside from a few invalid minutes that we're going to see across the 6, 7 and 8 jerseys, which are mostly Anthony Jelonch's minutes, he's done his ACL, things are looking probably as good as they're going to get when you've got a second choice player for all 3 jerseys out due to injury. We can see Francois Cross is quite clearly the first choice over our open side, with Dylan Creton filling in decently, moving up to second choice with Jelonch unfortunately out of the World Cup. Cameron Woki started to get some decent minutes at flanker and also at number 8. Ibrahim Diallo, decent backup. Cameron Woki, quite interesting to see, he's played so many different minutes in so many different jerseys. Whereas you can also say Bacogne has also played a full 80, so if worst comes to worst, you do have some kind of cover at least. Though you could probably wish these shares of minutes were a little larger. It's okay though, there's still clear structure. You should be alright if Cross stays injury free. We go over to blindside though. Charles Olivon, he really got injured at the correct time, man, honestly. Aside from Makalou, who is the third choice behind Woki, there's really not really much underneath him at all. As we've discussed, Dylan Creton really is more of an open side, and we all clearly know there rather that both of Flamand and Dante, they are not flankers, man. So yes, Olivon staying injury free is going to be paramount over in the number 7 jersey due to the high share of invalid minutes once again, whereas as we've discussed, Makalou's the only guy that can really cover Olivon. We now move over to number 8. Kind of a similar thing, but there is at least a little bit of structure. Tanga's got slightly more than Makalou, as we can see. And Gregory Aldred, though, massive minutes. He's played the second most of any individual player in the Galtier era. We can also see Jelonch's minutes coming up again. So hopefully they're just going to wrap Aldred in cotton wool before the World Cup and give a lot of game time to Tanga in preparation. We now go over to halfback now that we've had the ad break. And as we can see, Antoine Dupont has played the most minutes of any player in the Galtier era. Though Dupont has played such massive minutes, there's actually a lot of very decent structure aside from Dupont's red card that resulted in 23 invalid minutes. We've got Baptiste Quiu, who's actually played more minutes than Luku, who is usually the guy coming off the bench for Dupont, and Baptiste Serron, he has captained France before, so even though he's all the way over here in the green, I can trust him very much, I think. Sorry, he's actually in the yellow, but overall, I'm not actually crazily scared if Dupont goes down, because at least there are 4 experienced players on this chart. The most experienced, though, just happens to be the captain, so scary times. I doubt Dupont's going to come off during the World Cup, but Luku and Kiu, I think, can be trusted. We now go over to the 10 jersey. It's quite clear who the first and second choice are. Intermac has played massive minutes, Jalabert has played massive minutes, and Carbonell and Hastoy, they do have club level teammates in this French team, so I'm happy enough with the structure. Though the minutes coming to Intermac and Jalabert, the minutes for both of them are getting a little bit excessive. So yes, I'm happy enough with this one because they do have club level teammates. We now go all the way over to a second 5, the inside centre jersey. Just had a bit of an error with my device over here, but as we can see, Jonathan Dante, clearly the first choice, awesome. Gael Fiku, clearly the second choice, awesome. Yoram Mawifana, clearly the third choice. I'm very happy with that. So despite a fair few invalid minutes, which are from Arthur Vincent, who hasn't played since September last year due to getting another injury and hasn't recovered yet, though Vincent is out, there is decent enough cover. We can also see Sekou Makalou and Romain Intermac getting a few minutes in that different jersey just for worst case scenario preparations. We can also see minutes to Makalou at centre, the number 13 jersey though. Gael Fiku has played massive minutes here. Most of the minutes on this jersey though have been invalidated due to Arthur Vincent getting injured, while Veremi Vakatawa also had to retire from Test rugby, so all those minutes have gone with him. Pino normally plays on the wing. Yoram Mawifana, he's normally a 12. Pierre-Louis Barassi hasn't quite had the trust so far, so you've got to be pretty nervous if Fiku goes down. This is a pretty dodgy chart due to the amount of invalid minutes that there are. So hopefully they're going to really give another player decent minutes at 13. We now go to the outside backs. It's not too much of a big deal who plays in the outside backs. You don't need a crazy amount of experience, but we can clearly see Ethan Dumortier, who just missed 6 minutes during the Six Nations. He is the clear bolter for this World Cup. Gabon Villiers, he's also going to be on his way back from injury very soon, which is really good. He's just started training again. We can also see Fiku and Moefana learning how to be a centre on the wing, which is really good. France have a centre on the wing all the darn time, so this is great prep for them. Vincent Rattez and Mathis Leibel, getting them back in, no problem. There's also a few to Teddy Thomas and Julien Hereto. Over at our right wing though, you can see why it's so scattered over on the left wing, because Damien Penaud has just played absolutely massive minutes. So when you look at the two charts, this is great to make up for this. We can also see Teddy Thomas played a fair few at the number 14 jersey due to an injury that Penaud had earlier in the World Cup cycle. So though he's probably not going to get selected, at least there is a proven backup if Galtier wants to go for experience over form at the World Cup. We now get to fullback. Something very interesting, Melvin Jaminet leads the depth chart with 33% of the minutes, but Thomas Ramos just needs another 160 minutes to overtake Jaminet and move up from being the 4th choice before the Six Nations to the 1st choice ahead of the World Cup. Bruce Dulon is 33 years old as well, so it's not too bad to have a guy like that in there as cover. There were a few minutes to Anthony Boutier as well, whereas Max Spring had a full 80. Romain Ntamack and Mathieu Jalabert, though, we won't want to try that again. They both had shockers at 15, so overall 15's looking very good. A clear-cut 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th choice. This is amazingly well-managed minutes, especially with Ramos in hot form, about to overtake Jaminet, being the leading point scorer of the Six Nations, my personal player of the tournament. We now get to the most important player in this era though, Gaël Fickou. He's played a total of 27 tests under Fabien Galtier, with his career tally being at 79%. He's played massive minutes at both 12 and 13, a fair few in the 11 jersey, he's 3rd equal, whereas we can see he's also got a fair few on the right wing. The reason I see him as so important is because there is nothing beneath him at 13. There's really not a lot outside of Moefana and Dante at 12, whereas obviously he's got the experience being a centre on the wing to fill in if Penaud goes down. Gaël Fickou has played a total of 1,963 minutes under Galtier, which is the 3rd most, and considering the lack of depth beneath him, I see this guy as the most important player in the Galtier era, just to conclude this depth chart video to finish it all off. Thank you very much for watching the video, guys. So this took me a very long time, so you can support me over on Instagram, Twitter, and my PayPal tip jar if you want to continue the support of this channel, and you can also become a patron. I'm just going to end it off with this beautiful shot of Gaël Fickou, give you guys a bit of a laugh at the facial expressions. I'll see you next time. Cheers from Max.